This program is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
All right, and moving on now to look at another topic. Nigeria's textile, garment, and cotton sector, formerly Africa's third largest in the 70s, is experiencing a severe downturn characterized by high import dependency, 145 factories closure, and declining GDP contributions. Despite government effort to boost production through CBN interventions and a 100 billion Bank of Industry BOI Nigeria loan facility, the sector faces massive competition from cheap imports, inconsistent power supply, and low cotton yields. The national president of the National Cotton Association of Nigeria and a managing director of Arewa Cotton and allied products, Anibe Achimugu, explains some of the efforts that government is putting in place to revive the industry.
To be honest with you, I think beyond the fact that, the textile mills were closing down or have closed down, caused by obviously smuggling, which is a major concern or factor. Also the fact that the cost of production very high. It means that farmers had to now step down on their production volumes, and they needed now to look for alternatives, to be able to at least keep themselves and their families going. As cotton, you cannot, consume cotton. It's not something that you can use at the local level. So I think that, yes, that was perhaps when the decline started. And the decline, like I said, if the textile mills that are the consumers, main consumers, are no longer producing, then obviously the farmers will have to cut down on their production. And the ginners themselves that obviously are the immediate users of the seed cotton that is produced by the farmers, they also have their own challenges. We're talking about spare parts, and we're talking about power. It's a major factor as in the textile as well as in the ginning subsector as well. So those are the things that caused our decline, I think. You mentioned the fact that we were producing about 300,000 metric tons, which, yes, is reasonable. But when you think about the installed capacity of the ginning processors, the ginners, it was, I think, 650,000 metric tons ginning capacity that we had. We had over 52 ginning companies at that time, way back then. Today, I don't think that they are up to 20. And even the 20 that we're talking about are not obviously enjoying full capacity utilization. So those are the factors that have affected us. And like you said, that's when the rain started beating us, so to speak. I hate to always say that, government is important. Government intervention is important. Policy is very important. Trade protection is very important. We must be able to recognize the importance of the CTG sector in the first instance. It's a critical sector. It's a sector that you create wealth with. It's a sector that you create jobs. It's a sector that, in fact, to me, I always refer it as a national asset, or it should be classified as a national asset. Because we can't continue to import, what we potentially can produce ourselves. If you look at some school of thought, they believe that, upwards of $4 billion is imported into Nigeria on a yearly basis. Of course, that's the official channels and the unofficial channels, considering smuggling and so on and so forth. So I think there needs to be a deliberate intervention through government. I'm not necessarily saying that governments will run the CTG sector as a business, no, but to empower. And that is why, as I speak to you, I believe that the main strategy that government can utilize is the recently approved Cotton, Textile and Garment Development Board that the National Economic Council approved in April of last year, 2025. I believe that what is going on is that there's a disconnect. between industry players, public sector. You have agencies that, yes, they recognize the power of the CTG sector, but we are all doing what we're doing separately, not on one table, not on one platform. And I think that the board would have that capacity to coordinate and to ensure that every subsector of the CTG sector is supported. So I think that we need to look at it that way. We also need to support the made in Nigeria, so produced in Nigeria and worn in Nigeria. And there's the Executive Order 003, which needs to be enforced. Okay, so the policies are there, and the policies are good. Look at the first Nigeria policy, for instance, Nigeria First policy. We can tap into all this, bring it under one umbrella, and then the CTG sector will be able to run with it. We're talking uniforms, military, military, we're talking schools, and so on and so forth. And I think that the immediate market, if you look at, well, say more than 200 million Nigerians, imagine that we begin to say, look, you know what, let's try in the first place to clothe our own people, even before we start talking about exports, you know. So, and then, you know, the policy support, if you talk about the textile mills, for instance, we cannot just leave it to, you know, commercial considerations in terms of, for instance, power. It's a major factor, production factor, but we must be able to somehow reduce the cost of, if not, you'll not be competitive. Other countries that are supporting their CTG sectors are deliberate about what they give to them, policies that will support them and make them competitive. So the CTG sector is not lazy, but needs the support. So it's not, for instance, just talking about financing. We need to talk about the structure. We need to talk about, for instance, performance-based financing. You know, these are deliberate actions and steps that we must be able to take as a country. Okay, for instance, the Cotton, Textile and Garment Development Board that we, you know, asked the government to, you know, approve for its establishment will be private sector driven. That's the difference. Now, I want to thank government because government has done a lot in the past. Presently, because they've actually recognized the importance of the sector, the critical importance of the sector. But we have said that, you know, let's do it the private sector way this time. Okay? So we appreciate what government has done, but we wear the shoe and we know where it pinches. So we're thinking that, look, if you give us this platform, for instance, we have ourselves to blame. If we want to reach the over 1 trillion naira investment that we already have, then, you know, then it's on us. So, but if we are supported and it is private sector driven, we will drive it with commercial considerations. And you know, the speed of decision making, we have to also begin to think that we're not just isolated as a country. You know, there are other powerful CTG sector countries that love to dump into Nigeria. So it's either smuggled or it's dumped officially, so to speak. WTO engagement and rules and whatnot. Look at Bangladesh, look at Vietnam, it's coming up now, look at India, China, and so on and so forth. We shouldn't just leave ourselves open and blindly to them. We should be striving as Nigeria to be the hub of textile in Africa in the first instance. Look at West African market. At one point in time, we were the biggest players, you know, in West Africa. Today, of course, we're now competing with Ethiopia, Egypt, and the likes. Cote d'Ivoire and the likes. Look at Benin Republic. They've gotten it right. You can't blame them. So we have this raw material. Why don't we add value to it? So if you go to the industrial park, Gojibe, I think they call it, you know, it's private sector and government. And you need to see what they are doing. So they are producing today to Western markets, you know, big brands and so on and so forth. And of course, Nigeria is a major market for them. So we must protect ourselves and we must play that big brother role, that giant of Africa role, and be able to establish ourselves as a hub of textile in Africa. The private sector needs to take the lead. We need to drive, for instance, if government wants to do an intervention in the CTG sector. Oh yes, it's certainly going to be capital intensive. We're talking about now competing. So we have to improve our competitiveness. And to do that, you can't do it with the old machinery and equipment that we have currently. And you know, these things are not off the shelf. They are to order. So, I mean, there's a cost implication. For instance, if you want to go back to, you know, cotton production, which is the bedrock of the raw material requirements for, you know, the entire value chain, it's not something that you can do also overnight, but it's the low-hanging fruit, actually. You have to now organize the farmers or reorganize the farmers. You have to provide security, because insecurity is a major factor to also the declining production and areas of production. So we must be able to support the farmer, the local farmer. We must be able to give them the inputs they require, not just the inputs, but the quality of inputs and the quantity. For instance, if you talk about fertilizer, you may think 2 bags or 3 bags is enough for a hectare, but it's not. That farmer requires at least 7 bags, you know, to be very competitive and to be able to produce. And we're talking of yields, very poor at the moment. So it's going to be capital intensive, yes. But I believe that a deliberate intervention using the Cotton, Textile and Garment Development Board will yield the results. Well, I'm thinking, for instance, if you look at it, if you are talking of subsidy, for instance, I don't think that's the right word. Neither is grant the right word. But I'm saying competitive, to be competitive. For instance, if we look at maybe Ethiopia, I think maybe if the cost of funds, for instance, are low, you know, I honestly don't know what it is currently. But I know that, for instance, in places like China and the rest, they perhaps are not paying up to 2%. So, but if we are going for financing through the normal, typical channels, and you're talking of 25%, you can't be competitive. Cost of power, like I said, has to also deliberately be brought down, specifically for the textile, which we believe anyway, parks need to be developed. So those sort of interventions, those sort of deliberate steps to say, you know what, let's allow this sector to come back on its feet before maybe we begin to apply maybe tax, you know, and things like that. So it's important that this sector becomes very competitive. And I believe that whatever the cost is or the funding required, the benefit of what that will bring in return with jobs, export, you know, proceeds and so on and so forth will outweigh what. But initially, yes, they will need some a lot of funding to bring it back to be competitive. Oh yes, I mean, if you look at the background of the cotton, textile and garment sector across the world, it is actually an industrial revolution initiator, you know, from the get-go. And now, you know, actually, I don't know if a lot of Nigerians remember that in the campaign manifesto of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, his Renewed Hope agenda, he actually identified cotton production and actually identified textile as drivers for industrialization of Nigerian job creation. So yes, I think that, you know, definitely these things need to now be given birth to, you know, and that's why we're appealing that the board is established on time so that the CTG sector can now begin to come back to contribute its quota to the GDP of our nation and to other socioeconomic benefits for our country. It's simple. I mean, we need to revive the factories. The mills need to come back. Cotton production needs to come back. So apart from the farmers, for instance, we are talking about extension workers. We're talking about logistics. We're talking about so many other added services that employ. So if you produce a ton of cotton, that can generate job employment for 6 persons in a year, just 1 ton. So you can see what that means. So the factories are closed. But when you, for instance, a ginnery typically that is functioning within its installed capacity and so on, will perhaps engage at least 50 persons. That's one ginnery. Though, yes, it may be casual work and so on and so forth, but at least in the season, a season that runs for maybe 4 to 5 months, it helps, you know. The textile industries, you are talking of spinners, you are talking of weavers, you are talking about the actual printing and finishing, you are talking about garments, which is the biggest employer within that value chain. So if we are able to revive the value chain of CTG sector, job creation, wealth creation, like I said, from nothing is wasted in cotton. So that's why I keep including wealth creation. So you can take bits of cotton and begin to do cotton wool or cotton board, you know, which we are importing, you know. So job creation potentially is there, and it's something we should drive. So if we revive the value chain and bring back our industries, our industry players, their factories, their mills, I think that it will address indirectly also insecurity. Because when people have nothing to do, idle mind is the devil's workshop, like they say. So it's a critical sector, not just because I'm a player, but because the facts are there. What it has done, what it's currently doing, and what it will do for other countries that are taking it much more seriously than we are currently. Also, when we talk about government, the private sector has its own role to play as well. We also must be diligent. We also must take what is being given to us and handle it diligently, but take ownership, and we should be bold about that. I think that it will be also significant. You know, first and foremost, we have a market, a huge market. Look, people that are looking across the world, and I can tell you right now, I've met some of them that want to invest in countries like Nigeria. They want to invest in the CTG sector, a value chain like Nigeria. And if you are making, you know, money, you don't need to convince people too much. If you it's just what we are saying here is making the environment conducive for them to come and invest. That the government is actually interested. They know government is interested. So they know that they will be protected to an extent. And they know they will make money. Oh, they will come. And for me, that is what we need to do. We need to open up to, you know, investors. Locally, I can tell you also there are people with the right financing structure, weight, capacity to also invest even in brand new textile factories, not to talk of even the existing ones. So it is something that we can easily do. And once we do that, to me, the foreign exchange you are talking about, export, the products, like, okay, for immediate hanging fruit, for instance, though we don't want to continue to do that, is that you can produce enough cotton, the ginners process it, and you can export it to Bangladesh, Vietnam, and so on and so forth, and you get your foreign exchange. But why we say we want to encourage value addition is, for instance, you can sell maybe maximally, maybe say maybe $1.20, maybe $1.60, you know, for a ton of cotton lint raw material. But once you add value and it becomes yarn from a spinning process, you can end up to $5 per kilo, you know. So that's why we want to encourage value addition. So when you do that, you are not selling your lint anymore. You are adding value to it, producing yarn, export, because there are still markets that you can export to, and then you can bring in the FX. We're talking about the finished products like garment and clothing, apparel, all that you can also export even within Africa, that you can earn your foreign exchange. Yeah. I don't want to blame the farmers for that. That is why I talked about, you know, extension service. Extension service is not being provided to the farmers enough. The structure is not there, the system is not coping. It's not the job of the farmer, to be honest with you, to know the type of seed and how to plant it, where to plant it, how does it react, and so on. It's the job of the extension agent to be able to coach the farmer. And once you coach the farmer will know what to do. It is important, for instance, the seed system that we have currently is collapsed. So you get farmers planting all sorts of seeds, you know, from different parts of the country or even outside of the country. Now, very important word is uniformity when it comes to cotton production, which is part of the quality parameters that is required for a spinner. He wants to know that if you are giving him a certain, if you say it's short staple, length of fiber, let it be short staple. He knows what to do if he wants to blend with another type of cotton to get the kind of yarn he wants to weave and so on and so forth. But in this case where a farmer or farmers are planting different varieties from different parts of the country or different parts of Africa or the world, then it becomes difficult for that farmer to be, the spinner, sorry, to be able to set his machines to efficiently spin cotton, you know. So those are the challenges. So no, the farmers don't have that knowledge. Our seed systems have collapsed. IAR, which has the national mandate for seed development and all that, needs to be supported. We all, even within the industry, we need to begin to look at such research centers to support them to be able to produce the type of seed that will make, if it is shearling material we want, or if it is denim, khaki, you know, these are different varieties of cotton, you know. So we need to support such research organizations. We need to encourage private sector participation in seed processing and packaging. That way it will be competitive. That way you get the best, because it now begins to, we will now begin to talk about who has the best quality, aside from price, but who has the best quality and so on and so forth. Now we can't continue with the whole cutlass type of farming. For commercial quantity that is required. Now we're talking about maybe bringing investors in. We must be able to produce cotton sustainably. We must be able to give them the variety of cotton types that they require for their various establishments, open spinning or ring spinning, all that technology, all those things matter. So mechanization to us will not only help and also attract the youth back to farming, because they also don't want to be carrying hoe and cutlass, right? But it will help increase our production, we believe. There's precision planting that you can do. You are spraying and applying your fertilizer evenly and not, and you know, mechanization helps simply because you can till your ground, you can do whatever you need to do without too much of a headache, you know. So we think mechanization is critical. It's not only tractorization and so on and so forth. And we're thinking that this board that we're expecting to be established very soon will also have to engage more with the state governments. They are the owners of the land, for instance. They are the owners of the farmers. So we need to be able to coordinate. And I think what we're lacking here is coordination. So let's not have multiple agencies, but federal government agencies, for instance, doing whatever they are doing in the CTG sector, but there's no coordination. So the impact is not being felt. And I think that's where the challenge really is. And that you are doing it outside of the industry players, so to speak. Those that actually are the ones engaging in farming, they are the ones engaging in processing and so on and so forth. And they don't have a seat on the table. This board will address that, so that we bring all these factors into play. And I believe that with that, government will benefit. When you have significant job creation, when you have significant import, export proceeds coming in, and when people, and the insecurity, like I said, the social economic impact, positive impact of that value chain working is, I mean, it's amazing. So I want to encourage government, really. I want to thank them, like I said. Look at what the CBN did in 2019, for instance, the intervention in the CTG sector. It was a value chain intervention, by the way. It wasn't just production, but it was processing as well. Look at Bank of Industry, that for years now they have been supporting and driving and ensuring that this CTG sector does not totally collapse. They've been supporting the players. Now, all that effort, we believe, that would actually be enhanced with the board being in place. So we are encouraging government once again, thanking President Bola Tinubu and thanking NEC, National Economic Council, which also membership is all the state governors. And when we went for that presentation for this establishment of the Cotton, Textile and Garment Development Board, there was not one dissenting voice. They all recognized the importance under the chairmanship of the Vice President, and we are just looking forward to the President now approving it to be established so that we can hit the ground running. We are ready. All the plans are ready. We just need that support, that government hand, that government blessing, you know, to take it to where we know we can take it to.
That was the MDC Arewa Cotton and National President of Cotton speaking on how to revive Nigeria moribund cotton and textile industry. And with that is a wrap on the show today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Yusuf Akogu.
This program is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.